Hello and welcome you all from the venue of 17th All India Conference of CITU. I am Soham. I have a very special guest today, Comrade Tapan Sen, All India General Secretary of CITU, and welcome to Bangalore sir and revolutionary greetings on the 17th All India Conference of CITU. And it's a really honor to have a discussion with you on minimum wages in the particular context that we are writing. So we'll be having a conversation with Comrade Tapan Sen on minimum wages and in the current context of India and Indian working class. So to start off with, it is the times of crisis that we have observed, sir, throughout the pandemic, and in the later part of it, we have seen several livelihood losses. We have seen several losses of lives. Workers have gone through a lot of plight throughout this period. It is also a time when we are observing huge mounting unemployment, rising inflation. At this outset, when we observe something like minimum wages at a point of crisis, how do we even observe the crisis? How to even start the discussion on minimum wages, so to speak? Is it only a worker's right, or is it a basic human right, or is there a commonality between these two? If we can start off on that.
You see, what is wage? Wage is a remuneration to labor. And what is labor? Labor is generating value in the society. In one sense, as per our understanding, labor is the creator of GDP, labor is the generation of value in the economy, and it contributes towards the expansion. Most of others survive on that as a free lunch.
True.
And the more situation is getting critical, crisis is developing, the entire pressure is coming on the return to labor. That is the remuneration of the labor, and hence attack on the wages. On the other hand, there is another picture where when the labor got organized, consolidated, there was a period when again the right to minimum wages was much more defined, and there are struggles, and through that struggle the minimum wage could be improved upon, not only on a particular industry but overall. Minimum wages. Even at the macro level, we see the share of wages on the total value addition in the total gross economic activity of the country. There are quite a higher stage could be achieved, which is even cannot be dreamed of in a normal situation in a capitalist system itself. But in political situation, the welfare is the prevailing of the welfareist philosophy on the whole economic doctrine, and making that instrument, the working class movement also expanded, asserted. And in that process, it attained a stage also at one point of time. If we go through the share of wages in the value addition, at one point of time, pre-neoliberalism, pre-liberalization, it went above around 35-40%, around that.
Right.
Whereas the share of profit was hovering around 3% during the same time. Just pre-liberalization period, pre-1990s period, if you see. But overall, if you see the post-liberalization, you are referring to pandemic. But I can't say pandemic. Pandemic, it made the expression much more barbarous. But the whole process of a dacoity on the labor's right to human survival, entitlement, the survival entitlement has initiated structurally on the neoliberalism period, promising all-out growth to the entire economy, to the entire society, and a good many people got also confused by that arrogant media campaign. Although country's trade union movement from day one, they stood against this process of neoliberalism from day one. They started and they told that this will no doubt will be the onslaught on the people, but the onslaught of the national economy as well is in the days to come. This is going to happen if these structural changes are allowed to pick off. So during that process, actually, neoliberal minimum wages, wage, the whole concept of wage was started facing an onslaught. And if you see that by mid 1990s, that is 1991, if you see the onset of neoliberalism in India, so you can see by mid 1990s, the share of wages in value addition gone down around 20%. By 2011, it came around almost 10 to 12%. And as on date, official statistics claim that the wages share in the gross value addition is around 10%, but it is even below that because the wage statistics does not capture the entire laboring class.
Absolutely.
And the informalization is taking place in such a big way. So if both the things are factored in, and on that basis the official statistics is interpreted, then 10% is a draw to overestimate the wages share in the total value added in the economy. So I am telling you this is the journey of minimum wages, which got a much more barbarous expression during the period of pandemic because many things could get exposed. The vulnerability and fragility of the whole system got so much exposed that it became came out with a barbarous expression. But the process of downsliding has started going on.
So, just coming to then, and since you have mentioned that it has been long 30 years from which this onslaught has started, and now we are seeing the barbarous nature of it. I just come to a little technical point to it, which most of these neoliberal governments often push us towards thinking that minimum wage has something to do with productivity. Minimum wage has something to do with how productive is a laborer, and there is some vicious argument that keeps going on around. So, is there a logic to it, or is there a scientific method of understanding minimum wage from a communist party, from a trade unionist perspective?
One basic thing you have to remember. Post-war period, along with the independence of so many colonies,
Right.
defeat of fascism, development of an alternative economic model called socialism, all taken together, and the then economic crisis of capitalism, which gave birth to Keynesianism, demand management for promoting growth, and for demand management means people's income must be taken into account seriously. That can take out capitalism out of the crisis. It was a most golden period. It was called the golden period of capitalism also because they came out of the crisis. But at the same time, it was the period when the certain basic right and a basic benchmark for a civilized society has been recognized. Minimum wage is one of that concept. Those scoundrels who call minimum wage to link with productivity,
Yes.
that reflects the moving away from a civilized way of looking into the thing towards more barbarism for maximization of profit by any means at a time
Right.
when the normal capitalism production system is again plunged into a systemic crisis. It is not a crisis as usual. It is not a crisis in capitalism. It is a crisis of capitalism and a continuing slowdown. Through the production process, profit cannot be maximized through appropriation of surplus in the production process. So, expropriation, that is direct loot on public exchequer and people's right, direct intrusion on people's right, that is becomes an urgent need for them. And in that situation, these theories are now being cooked up. That minimum wage, it must be linked with the productivity. Concept of minimum wage is to ensure human survival entitlement of the labor who are creating value for the society. For the societal advance, for the economic growth of the entire macro level, entire country, it is important that those who are creating value must be healthy and sound and competent to contribute. So the bringing about concept of productivity on the minimum wage, that is the benchmark for human survival, is nothing but a criminality. This is one.
Yes.
That has to be understood. Now, systemic crisis is bringing about that question. And at the same time, you must note that it cannot be understood only in looking through the movement of minimum wage. You have to look into the change that is taking place or sought to be brought about in the employment relations.
Right.
In the employment relation defines the wages. So it has to be looked into the change into that. Through that process, they are trying to facilitate that process, that the whole concept of minimum wage, which is a return to labor for a defined hours of work. That is, minimum wage is linked to the defined working hour of 8 hours, internationally acknowledged. 8 hours working, this is your minimum wage to ensure your survival. And if you produce more, you must get a fair share of it. And through the working class struggle and industrial relations exercise, the many concepts came where productivity, to motivate workers for higher productivity, many instruments has come like incentive, productivity bonus, so on and so forth. But minimum wage is a statutory minimum, it is a benchmark below which nobody is entitled to employ anybody paying less than that. That is the concept of definition of minimum wage. Even the 14th Act also basically premised on that. So, here talking about productivity is a criminality. Number one. Number two, in this scene, there and over a period during post-war period, when I can tell you at least about the experience of Indian working class movement, but if you really go through the global working class movement also, that is the period where the certain basic right was established for the working class, right to strike, right to collective bargaining, ILO, the core conventions, right to freedom of association and 87 and 98, right to collective. All these issues were globally recognized. And the history of these workers' right, if you see, that right did not never come of its own. That is, first the law came into the force and then worker got the right, never. Worker asserted their right by their collective strength first and then compelled the society to recognize that right. And that way 8 hours came, made a struggle in the history. Everybody known to it. The 8 hours working came. That's the minimum wage concept has come. That's a defined working hour and minimum wage, that linkage was established. The human, not only that, certain basic social security to be the responsibility of the state to be the responsibility of the state. And state can compel employers to share a part of the expenditure. All these provisions came globally in different countries, and the basic foundation of the rights of the working class in different, particularly in the European countries. Post-socialism, the socialistic system has created a pressure on them. All this came into being. That is a checkered history of that. And in that process, if you see the Indian context also, it was an important thing to take note of. The minimum wage act was 48. Thereafter, on these there are a lot of agitation, and that was ultimately culminated in 1957, the Indian Labour Conference. They defined minimum wage on a scientific basis.
Right.
In the given capitalist, within the framework of capitalist system, 2,700 calories and certain other basic ingredients of human living, established, premised on the principle that this is for your human survival entitlement, because those are the basic necessities of human survival entitlement. A formula was drawn. It is, and there was a consensus recommendation in 1957. And thereafter, on that, it does not mean that that was implemented.
Of course.
It's a government, although government was a party to that decision. Indian Labour Conference means state government, central government, employers organization, workers organization, all are part. But premised on that, the working class movement, the struggle that was unleashed during post that period, that could improve upon substantially minimum wage in many industries, although not on a very macro and generalized level. But wherever labour capital contradiction was sharpened, their labour could organize themselves and assert their right, they could improve their wages. And in that process, you must take note of two important things happened. There are Supreme Court cases on Raptakos and bread. There they told that only filling the stomach and only house rent and other basic requirement is not enough. Medical and other necessities are also there. And Supreme Court given a judgment that on that formula, Indian Labour Conference formula, 25% of that should be the formulation of minimum wage. And in the 45th Indian Labour Conference, I think now year I am forgetting, during the UPA rule, 46th Indian, 45th I think, yes. It was the same formula again consensually accommodated, but accepted by the Indian Labour Conference. With that, the 57 formula plus Raptakos bread judgment taken together should be the formula of minimum wages. That was established again, and it was reiterated by all subsequent labour conferences. So it was a consensus decision of the employers of the country, of the government, all the governments of the country, whichever government is there, and also all the trade unions. In the highest tripartite forum, even that has not been implemented. But that made the premise of our fight, and the joint trade union movement on that premise has demanded the minimum wage as on 2017. 18,000 should be the minimum wage based on that formula. And premise is that in 2017, the Pay Commission, in their report, they referred to this report, calculated on the then price level. Although we have a criticism of that calculation, it is not an appropriate calculation, they have decided the minimum wage to be 18,000 rupees. We adapted that. As per our calculation, it was more than 20,000, the then price level. But in any case, we adapted since a Pay Commission, and that we made the demand. And subsequently, we have updated as the price, and today, entire joint trade union movement, on premise on that formula, there is an arbitrary demand that it should be at least 26,000 rupees.
Yes.
That's the thing. But what is the reality today? On the average, I think it is not more than 9,000, those who are having job.
Yes.
If you take the organized sector into consideration, Mainly organized sector, it is not more than 9,000. In some cases, there are 50,000, 60,000. But you pull
On an
that
average, yes.
entire organized sector together, it is hardly 9,000, 9,300 something.
Yeah.
As on date. But till the battle is going on, in many cases they are settling wages, even in the state of Karnataka.
Yes.
In many important modern industries, our comrades are fighting and settling wages. Even during pandemic, they have made wage settlement and increased their wages. So that battle is going on. The premise was this foundation.
Right.
So there is a checkered history. But at the same time, what is important now is that on that day onslaught as being planned by further restructuring of the employment relation. Unless you don't connect it, this cannot be understood.
So,
And the purpose of this restructuring is to banish the basic concept of a workmanship. As a worker, how do you recognize a worker? He has got a defined working hours, he has got a defined wage, he has got a defined standard of social security. In any civilized society, that is the standard definition and that is globally recognized. I will also recognize. And all these ingredients, based on the ILO, define the decent work.
yes.
These three elements and his right to represent, right to collective bargaining. These are the ingredients. Now all the three ingredients are sought to be banished. The manner, the production relations and employment relations are now being restructured and planned. And the labor code has made the foundation of it.
I was just going to come to that, sir. During the Modi government, do you see that it has been escalated further? I mean, the process that you are talking about, that the
You see, yes, natural, or you may say, if you can put it on the other way, as the systemic crisis
grows.
is escalating. Today, IMF is telling that neoliberalism has come to a dead end. Today, World Bank is telling world is heading for a severe recession in 2023,
Absolutely.
despite neoliberalism, despite market fundamentalism. Market is the god in the neoliberalism, is not it? So, in that process, Modi is an event. It is just not the other way.
Yeah.
That Modi's time it has escalated. It is an event in the process of the evolution of the capitalist production process under new liberalism, plunging from one crisis to another deeper crisis. In 2000, your global bubble, US subprime crisis in 2008, and subsequent, if you see, its impact on India came with a time lag. Because those subprime crises are basically financial sector crises, and India financial sector are mostly under the state control. So the impact came with a time lag. And
So came the
that to assimilate that impact, yes, Modi government played a major role. So, and it was historically required for capitalism system, capitalist system to adapt that. You see, although the financial sector, which is under international finance capital now is in the leadership of the capitalist economy. It's not it, even in our national. Now the financial sector, since it was state-run, that impact came with a time lag, and in the sense that by that process, during that time lag, the financial sector was further the state control, state managed. Management has gone through a perversion by which debt default was legalized by Insolvency Bankruptcy Procedure Act. I'll take money from you, I'll not pay you,
Absolutely.
and that is allowed. Last 5 years, 10 lakh crore loans are written off, an equal amount the banks were compelled to forego. It was around 9 lakh crore, equal amount, forego through IBC, through haircut. So, the impact of the systemic crisis has been injected, and here definitely Modi government played a major role. Or if you put other historically, that necessity of capitalist system, have brought Modi to power as its political agents.
As he's serving
to facilitate this perversion in the whole economy management process.
Right.
That has to be understood. And that leads to change in employment, restructuring of the employment relations.
Yes.
Earlier, regular worker is going down. Contract worker is an old phenomena. But at the same time, country's working class movement got certain rights for contract worker. Contract Labour Regulation Abolition Act 1970, non-permissibility of contract work in the permanent perennial nature of job. All this going to be totally repealed through labour code process.
Yes.
They facilitated that process. And at the same time, they are changing over to a new format. Fixed term employment came.
Right.
You are out of the law. The moment fixed term employment, although this is a legal provision, but for 3 months they will make you work and then can throw you out without a notice.
Yes.
You will not be even entitled for Provident Fund ESI, but for that at least you are required to work for 5 years.
Yes.
So at the same time they are taking away all the social security from you.
Right.
And also right to assert on minimum wage, although fixed term employment speaks about that the same wage as regular worker they will be getting. But how will they ask for?
If there is no...
If they know that after 3 months, after 4 months, after 1 year I am to go.
Right.
I am giving a simple example, a government establishment, don't talk about others. Alliance Air. Now it has all Tata's property, Air India has taken. But till that time, Alliance Air was a subsidiary of Air India. Entire workforce of Alliance Air are all fixed term employment. And doing the same work, they get at least half the wages of what Air India officials are getting. So I am telling you, this is the concept, when havoc can create this change of employment relation on your right to minimum wage and other basic ingredients of your right. These relationship has to be understood.
Yes.
This attack is going on and now they are coming with a new format, trainees.
Yeah.
And the government from their budgetary allocation, they are directly incentivizing the employer, private sector employer, to finance the 25% of the stipend they are required to pay to the trainees from budgetary allocation.
Yes.
And they are promoting that give more trainees. Don't go even contract worker, because after all contract workers are still having certain rights.
Yes.
They are still covered by that law, although that was repealed by Labour Code, but Labour Code is yet to be notified.
Yes.
Is not it?
Yes.
So after, better go out and contract workers are having, they are covered by Industrial Disputes Act, so we can't avoid that. So you go to a procession by which they will not have the right to do that. That is trainees.
Yes.
They are now becoming an integral part of the production process. In Maruti Manesar,
Yeah.
the regular worker, hardly 3,000, 4,000. Or now it is given, I am telling you, for, I think more than 1/3 are trainees. Another 1/3 is contract worker,
workers.
rest are regular worker, and regular worker number is dwindling. So at one point of time, it will be only training they will be left.
Yeah.
Even the contract worker can also be done away with.
Yeah.
So the whole manufacturing process is going to be manned by a new set of workforce who will have no right. And that's the biggest challenge now for our conference.
I was going to come to that.
Whom, how to organize them?
Yes.
So no law is there. They are not covered by any law. What is there? Only one thing, we have to organize them, we have to make them assert. Just with that learning from the history, that working class, whatever right they never got first by law. They asserted their right. They withdrawn them from the workplace and created pressure on the employers and got their right recognized. And one point of time, if they can be organized, that can be done. After all, they are the value creator. The moment we can make the overall working people understand that we create the value, if we withdraw ourselves, that blighters, employers, corporate giants, and including their political servants will die of hunger because we don't create value.
Yes.
So that assertion has to be there. So in that way, it has to be appropriately understood, the relationship. And this is going to bring about a very big attack on the very concept of minimum, not only minimum wage. I told that the basic three component of a worker's recognition, that a defined minimum wage, defined working hour, defined minimum wage, and a basic social security, all those concepts is going to be banished. And what can be the format? Gig work.
Absolutely.
Is the example. Gig work is the example.
And
if you got the information in the app,
yeah,
you are having work. The day you don't get a message from your app, on that day you have no earning. What is the basic minimum wage? Statutory concept remains.
right.
And here already there are certain disputes. We have raised certain area in minimum wage gig worker. We have just organized, started.
Yes.
It's a very initial stage. In Bengal, Calcutta and 24 Parganas, some agitation, some gherav, some soldiers straightway muscle flexing. Ultimately, they have to come to term, talk to them. And ultimately, they admitted that the commission can be fixed, not more than 20%.
Right.
Because platform owner earns 20%, any amount of commission there.
Yeah.
And the whole modality of payment is that the money comes from the platform owner to the worker's wallet. If they don't send, you don't get money.
Yeah.
It's one way thing. So this kind of, it is an example. What is going there, what they are planning to do, the gig type of work. And I am sure in the manufacturing sector and other sector also, the ruling class is articulating how to bring this concept in the production work. Already in different negotiation, they are trying to link per minute production given, per minute,
Yeah.
to link with your demand of wages. So that thing is going on. How far we will be able to combat it depends on that whether we will be able to defend the very concept of minimum wage.
So, coming to, as since you have mentioned gig work, so before, and since we are at the 17th conference of CITU, it seems that there are like more than 90% of Indian workers are already informal in the nature of the employer-employment relationship. And in the formal sector, as you have been explaining, that the process of contractualization, informalization have now taken a rather harsh path, where even the most secure jobs are going to become gigs. It is at this outset from the conference, if you would like to give a message that the crisis of minimum wage, the crisis of security of a worker, the crisis social security of a worker, or the working hour, how is it that the working class combat that you are envisioning through CITU throughout historically through
one thing you have to
struggles?
understand, you cannot, number one, I think the perceptual inadequacy is there. You see, even the right of informal workers depends on to what extent formal workers are.
Absolutely.
It cannot be separated. if somebody thinks about that informal workers by themselves will be able to establish something. No, it cannot. The whole history of the construction workers welfare board, major part are informal.
Yes.
How did law has come about? For a long, almost a decade-long struggle. And in that struggle, the organized part of the construction sector also played a very big role. A broadest platform was developed. Thereafter, 1996, the law was enacted. And there was so much contradiction within the system is that their rules could be finalized only by 2000. And actually, 2002 onward, that started getting operative. Till now, that is working.
Absolutely, yes.
So, informal sector, if you say bidi workers, that was, despite being an informal sector, there is a mix of formal and informal.
Relations.
And bidi workers is one of the oldest organized movement in our country. Pre-independence day, they are organized.
Yes.
Both organized and bidi workers welfare and so many schemes, government funded scheme work for quite a long time. Big housing, medical and other family thing. Now it is getting further informalized and a labor code has finished all. Mines worker, dolomite mines, different other mines worker. Everybody could have a welfare scheme and basically all are contract workers. They could develop a welfare scheme of their own, government funded and cess funded.
Right.
Funding is government is to fund and at the same time employers is to fund through payment of cess. And that scheme was operating. Everything was finished by finance bill, this criminal Modi government. Everything was finished.
Right.
Despite you oppose, but finished, number is there. I am telling you, so the informal sector, whatever right informal sector got, I am giving you some examples,
Right.
BD and other construction, even the MNRGA.
Yes.
You see, they are absolutely informality, but their wage was defined.
Yes.
Now that is being violated, that is altogether different thing. But the wage was defined. That the agricultural workers do minimum wage they should get. So I am telling you, when in the formal sector, total change in employment relation, it means it was a further serious
Assault.
attack on the informal sector as well. Nobody can survive
Yes.
if these are not combated together. And here the main role is there of the organized sector workers movement have to play the major role. It is as we understand about the contradiction that is to play. So it is not separate. The informal sector got a recognition that they need to be looked after. Even different welfare scheme that came about. Government on their own. They avoid bringing about law, statutory. But different other scheme government on their own as an executive order used to declare because they don't like to go to statutory right. But that came about because of the compulsion created that the society requires this. And it is a part of the contribution of the working class movement. And that part, the formal sector's assertion, certain lawful right assertion, has created that ambience. But so if this goes worse, that will go even worse. It cannot be separated. As if I'll attack on them and they are safe. No question of doing it. Because they don't have any legal umbrella at all. What is the unorganized sector? They don't have any legal umbrella at all. So, and if technology is now the manner it is being utilized, even in informal sector,
Yes.
it will become much more difficult to assert for the workers if they don't organize and develop a much more consolidated collectivity. That is the challenge, and that is the challenge before our conference also.
Comrade, a message before we conclude our interview here. A message from the 17th All India CITU
I think
conference.
in our conference we are dealing with the impact of systemic crisis and how it is getting expressed on the day-to-day life of the workers, on their rights. And that is equally linked how the systemic crisis is getting reflected on the political governance system. And equally important is its reflection, systemic crisis reflection on the societal governance.
Right.
And that's why the present ruling class has chosen eyeball government is Modi. Because their authoritarian onslaught on economy management, on political governance, and on societal management through communal divisive polarization, all taken together is a comprehensive project before the capitalist corporate class. It is a comprehensive project.
Yes.
It is not separate from one another. That is the understanding about that to carry among the workers so that they can clearly make a political choice correctly while asserting their class rights. All these, that's the biggest challenge. To raising we have, in our last conference, we have formulated our understanding that the stage we have arrived at, that is in 2020, well before the pandemic, the situation that has developed owing to Modi's second time coming into power, it is useless, futile to try for convincing the government for not to do or do that.
Yeah.
It is a point of defiance and resistance. Wherever you can defy, you can save. Yes. Wherever you cannot, you go. Air India, we could not, it gone to Tata. Maharashtra Electricity Board employees very aggressively slapped on the government, and Fadnavis has gone back. So the defiance and resistance for that, this comprehensive consciousness among the workers is required, among the unions is required. Our conference will try to sensitize our organizational network up to the lowest level to take up that task, to expand the consciousness, heighten the consciousness, to be able to defy and resist. Our experience during last 4 years, since our last conference, wherever that defiance could be built up, we could save it. Wherever. Electricity sector is the brightest example. Many public sector, BPCL, privatization they have to abandon. CEL, privatization they have to abandon. In Bangalore, BEML, they could not yet privatize because the physical defiance and resistance was there. Although BEML is now presently led by a BMS leader, but there is a history when they came for due diligence, a team of private guys in the Bangalore and Mysore and Palakkad plant, workers and officers together did not allow them to enter. They went to their corporate office at Bangalore, even there are agitation. I'm telling you, that's why BEML till saved. Otherwise, by this time it would have been sold out. Because hardly 25% offloading of shares of BEML would have made it private company. The shareholding position is such. So I'm telling you, our experience of defiance and resistance during last 4 years, and that's the only way before us, entire working class movement, you have to carry to that level. That's a challenge before our conference.
It is on that note of defiance and resistance, as Comrade Tapan Sen was explaining to us, we heartily congratulate CITU All India Conference, and we wish them a success. Thank you, Comrade, for taking the time, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. That's all for now. Thank you.